Minecraft is a game full of seemingly unlimited possibilities. On the surface, it's an open-world survival game where you can build, mine, craft, and interact with your friends. What many overlook is the fact that it can be used as a platform to create entire mini-games. Games within a game, if you will. Multiplayer servers such as Mineplex and Hypixel have capitalized on this, and people have made custom maps for anyone to download that can send you on adventures. Just how far can you push the boundaries of what is possible in this game? Objective: create a playable Pokemon game in an unmodded version of Minecraft. Everyone knows the Pokemon video game series as the adventures of a player going through different areas, catching as many Pokemon as possible, filling their Pokédex along the way. I've been a fan of these games for a long time, and I thought it would be fun to try to recreate this experience as closely as I could in my favorite sandbox game. I enlisted the help of my friends Brendan and Reed, and we came up with a game plan. This project would be possible using mainly these Minecraft features: custom mob spawners, player heads, loot tables, custom advancements, server plugins, and command blocks. There is some background to go into before we dive in. Player heads have been a feature in Minecraft for a long time now, and the ability to use them to show any player's avatar has always fascinated me. I started up a small private server in 2013, and across the years I hosted events that would make heads available to players. Before this project, I discovered that you could have zombies and skeletons wear custom player heads and drop them using monster spawners. One idea led to another, and I set up events where players could battle their favorite characters from movies, TV shows, and more, each with the goal of collecting these unique player heads. With this in mind, the idea suddenly popped into my head. What if I could create one of these events, but with all 151 original Pokemon? I dwelled on it for a couple of days, and my idea just kept getting more and more ambitious. What started as an event where players could run around killing monsters for heads turned into one that captured as much of the spirit of the Gen 1 Pokemon games as possible. Okay, let's take a step back. This was far more ambitious than anything I had done in the past. What you have to keep in mind was that although I spent a lot of time making characters into Minecraft monsters, that's really all I worked on. I placed these custom mob spawners around the spawn area of the survival world we built and let players go crazy. What I wanted to do here would require a lot of extra steps. I would need to build up a custom world for the mobs to spawn in, preferably with different themed regions to imitate their roots in Pokemon games. I could try to find one and download it, but what's the fun in that? Another challenge was that the monsters I created in the past wore the heads of avatars that already existed and were available to download. Here I needed to find player skins for 151 Pokemon, which wasn't a challenge for some of the more popular ones like Pikachu, but for some of the more obscure ones, the quality was either bad or a skin didn't exist at all. This would mean I'd have to tinker with existing designs to get one I liked, or in some cases even create one from scratch. One final challenge was that many of the features in Pokemon games I wanted to imitate, I simply hadn't incorporated into events I'd done in the past. This didn't mean they were impossible, it just meant that I'd have to get creative and learn. With all of this in mind, I assembled my team and we got to work. There were two main things that needed to get done before anything else: building the world, and gathering or creating all 151 Pokemon player avatars. All three of us would work on building the world first over time, and I would work on player skins on the side. We decided instead of trying to build specific areas from the game, we would create our own locations. After planning out the map and which Pokemon would spawn in which area, we started the long process of building a world from scratch. The first step was to install a server plugin called World Edit. As any map maker can tell you, this is a must-have add-on that helps you do massive amounts of building in short periods of time. We used it to create large flat areas, add hills and trees, and place or remove huge amounts of blocks to create a canyon, mountain, and ocean. The other thing it was useful for was importing schematics, which allowed us to paste in existing player builds. We might be creative, but we didn't have quite enough time, nor were we skilled enough to build every structure on the map. We also used a head database plugin and armor stand data pack to throw in as much detail as possible, from the starting town, to the canopy of the forest, to the boardwalk on the ocean, to the Team Rocket casino next to the volcano. The map took shape over several months. Meanwhile, I had been slaving away at the Pokemon heads. As is the case with many of my projects, my perfectionism was getting the better of me. If I found existing skins for any Pokemon, I often edited them to my liking, sometimes for an unreasonable amount of time. I used a program called Graphic Scale, which allowed me to easily copy color hues from actual Pokemon sprites and modify the colors in the skin to be as identical as possible. I tried to incorporate as much detail into an 8x8 pixel head as I could, utilizing Minecraft's hat layer feature and different levels of transparency whenever possible. The job wasn't done at 151 Pokemon either. Hardcore Pokemon fans know very rare versions of Pokemon called Shinies are available to find, and these required alternate color palettes than the ones I used. This was an easy, albeit tedious, process, as I just had to go in and change the colors pixel by pixel 151 more times. My brain didn't stop there, however. Inspired by a ROM hack I made of Pokemon Platinum, I created a third set of 151 Pokemon heads with my own custom color palettes and called them Ultra Shinies. I repeated the same process, this time utilizing a website to shift hues by a certain degree, so I didn't have to do all the work by hand. After months of work, I had created 453 heads, which I would later find out wasn't even the last of it. For now though, we had 90% of the map done and all the Pokemon heads made, so it was time to work on the technical stuff. For this to resemble Pokemon, we would need to figure out how to include as many of the game's mechanics as possible. There were certain things we quickly realized would never be plausible with our limited knowledge, like any form of trainer battle, which was a shame because it was one of the core features. However, we worked out ways to stay true to a lot of the other aspects of the games. Two main things would become the backbone of this project: command blocks and advancements. Command blocks in Minecraft are useful for executing commands at the push of a button. Without them there to teleport players to new locations, or read off dialogue I gave NPCs, our adventure world would not have been possible. They had an even more important use: conditional commands. Basically, we were able to set up a chain of command blocks that would halt if a single command before it wouldn't execute. In English, if we set a command block to clear a specific item from a player and the next one to teleport them, that player would be unable to teleport unless they had that item to give. This mechanic would prove invaluable, mainly because player heads have NBT data attached to them. Simply put, each Pokemon head was treated as a unique item, and using command blocks, we could lock certain actions behind having certain heads. The main feature this was used for was Pokemon evolution. In the games, your Pokemon could evolve up to 2 times into a stronger version of itself after leveling up. We would have to do this differently, since our Pokemon were player heads. We set up a room filled with chains of command blocks meticulously constructed to take specific heads and pop out new evolved ones. Each evolution would take a certain amount of candy to evolve. Each typing had a candy from grass to dragon, and the Pokemon monsters that dropped their heads could also drop heads stylized as candies. At this point, almost every Pokemon head was obtainable through either monster drops or evolution. There were a few special cases though. Out of the 151 Pokemon, there are 4 legendaries and 1 mythical. The legendary Pokemon are especially powerful, so we wanted to make them harder to get. Each one was treated as a boss battle, and you had to go through an obstacle to fight them. From completing a puzzle to finishing a parkour course, players would beat the legendaries feeling like they accomplished something. Mew, the mythical Pokemon, was an even more challenging boss to get to. This is where custom advancements came in. Advancements in Minecraft are normally just small milestones with which to guide new players through their journey. but there's so much more you can do with them than the default advancements suggest. There's a long list of criteria you can pick to trigger your custom advancement, and you can even have it give a reward upon triggering. The best part? These were an easy way to guide our players through their journey, both by showing them how to progress and ensuring certain events, such as choosing your starter Pokemon, only happened once. In the original games, the Pokemon Mew was only obtainable through special events, so we wanted to make reaching it feel special. Using advancements to pave the way, I designed a 4-part series of challenges that would reward a quarter of what we called a Mew token upon completion. Once players completed a trading challenge, a puzzle, a swimming course, and an Elytra course, they could combine the 4 tokens to fight Mew in a special encounter under the Team Rocket Casino. Advancements didn't stop being useful there. One of the main feats in the original games was finishing the Pokédex, so we needed to add in a way of tracking progress. This came in the form of an advancement that was coded to have 151 tasks, each being simply to have one of the unique player heads whose NBT data represented a Pokemon. This way, every time a player got a head they didn't have, it would update the number. Upon completing this advancement, players would be rewarded with a Looting 1 book that would boost their odds of getting shinies and ultra shinies, imitating the shiny charm you would receive in the original game. Following suit, an advancement for collecting every shiny was added, rewarding a Looting 2 book. 2 major things were left for us to do: creating the mob spawners that would spawn the Pokemon themselves, and the loot tables that would be attached to each one. One of the features Minecraft added that gave map makers more customization than ever was the ability to make custom loot tables. Normally, a monster can only drop what it's wearing or holding, but with these bad boys, you can list as many drops as you want, and more importantly, the odds of each one dropping. I had already been familiar with the formatting of loot tables from my previous events, so this was no challenge. Each Pokemon had to have a unique loot table written in a .json format, which was an easy learn because it resembles the HTML language I learned in college. While Reed was overseeing most of the map building, Brendan was in charge of number balancing. With his help, we filled in odds for a head drop, shiny drop, and ultra shiny drop. He also came up with stats for all monsters, such as attack damage and hit points. This took some playtesting and balancing to finalize, but in the end we had unique monsters with their own stats and drops. Loot tables were also used for fishing. This one took a lot of testing and hours of frustration, as there are surprisingly few resources out there for this type of stuff, and fishing loot tables were new territory for me. After doing a quest for a pirate to obtain a fishing rod, players were able to fish up the heads of ocean-dwelling Pokemon. This was it. We had come up with a launch date and were in the final weeks of working. Now I went through and added less important but still game-changing features. The biggest thing I worked on was making the endgame more rewarding by creating a secret area called the Underside. After completing the Pokédex, players could visit the depths of the world where they could fight demented versions of Pokemon that were much stronger than their counterparts. The rewards here were tokens to refight Mew, shiny boost potions, and better gear in general. I added several currencies at this point as well, in the form of player heads. Pokeballs, BP, and Master Balls were droppable from Pokemon. Pokeballs dropped from any Pokemon and could be traded for NPC heads at any number of villager shops around the map. BP could be dropped from costumed Pokemon at a battle coliseum and could be traded for potions and combat gear. Master Balls dropped from the demented Pokemon in the Underside and could be traded for late game gear. After this, a number of smaller things were added right before launch. I added incredibly rare drops for what I called God items, which were very powerful weapons and armor. Reed hid 20 heads around the map, and I added an advancement for finding them all, which would reward running boots, giving permanent extra speed. I came up with a system of waypoints around the map players would unlock as they discovered them, allowing fast travel. We added secret Pokemon, such as Missing No as a rare spawn, and a Togepi that hatched during a quest. Although I had many more ideas, we decided the event was finally ready for release to our server after several months of hard work. Our players explored the world we created and collected them all, and we couldn't have been prouder of our work. Over the coming weeks, I released small updates to satisfy my ambition. Thanks to fishing loot tables allowing different loot to be fished depending on what biome a player was standing in, I was able to add a fishing pond with tons of variations of Magikarp, each with a different rarity. This brought loot crates that could include shiny boxes and a new mini-boss. I also hosted events inspired by Pokemon Go called Community Days, where a specific Pokemon or two spawned all over the map with highly boosted shiny odds. There were quests to complete with each one which rewarded trophies. The last update I ended up doing was a half-heart challenge, which required players to beat powerful versions of every boss without taking any damage. Eventually, interest died down and we stopped playing as much. We had plans to release a massive update, which would include a way to battle the Elite Four and a huge expansion to the Underside. But time and motivation were not on our side. I ended up building a huge portion of the Underside expansion, and because I would hate for it to go to waste, it will sit there and be saved for a future event. Perhaps a Pokemon Gen 2 event with a whole new map and new Pokemon to collect. What did we learn and accomplish? First off, we were very proud of the product we worked hard to build, mostly from the ground up, and we had as much fun playing it as we did building it. All three of us became better builders and definitely better Minecraft engineers, so to speak. For me personally, I was happy to prove to myself that my wildly ambitious ideas were possible if I put my mind to it. It took a long time, but we did it. We built Pokemon in Minecraft without using any mods. Although it's been a while since we moved on from this project, I'm definitely not ready to give up completely. With new discoveries such as a plugin that adds quests and NPCs, and brand new Minecraft updates with new blocks and features. A follow-up project could be more exciting to build than ever. With Minecraft, after all, the only limit is your imagination.